Hope you're having a great day today. Hey, it's Gary Cox, and I've got a little tequila with me. Before we get started, I want to ask if you don't mind, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so. Also comment and like. A couple months ago, we got hacked. I guess that's how some people get off. We had over 3,000 videos, so we have a lot of catching up to do, and we'd certainly appreciate your support. And thank you so much for being here as well. So I'm going to talk about the psychology of why sometimes we get stuck into working really, really hard when a lot of the work that we're doing is not productive. In other words, sometimes we often feel like we're pushing a parked car. Ever feel that way? I think we all have from time to time. So I'm going to share with you how I've been able to master changing that and how it adds so much more quality to my lifestyle, and I think you'll be able to do the same. You've probably heard the rule before, the 80-20 rule. Now keep in mind this is a rule, not, it's a principle, not a rule, I should say, or it's not a law. Being a rule or a principle mean this is not 100%. Now the law of gravity is 100%. I drop this pencil or this marker, it's going to drop. But this is a great rule or principle, more so a principle to go by. And what it basically means is out of 100% of the time that we spend doing something, 80% of that, the result that we get only comes from 20% of the input, which means we're wasting a lot of time. So I want to share with you a number of different areas in your life that you can apply this rule and make some major changes in your life where you will not feel like you're pushing a parked car. In fact, you'll get more results with less time and probably feel a little bored. That's pretty nice for some people. So we're going to talk about areas how you can use this if you exercise or work out. Even if you don't, you can still use this same principle. Business for sure, your finances, and definitely your time. So let's basically go over how it works. So this is going to be like a little flask here. All right. So we're going to do 20%. All right. So our 100% of effort we put into something, 20% is giving us 80% of the results that go over here. 80%. So we are wasting all this extra time right here. So 20, 20, 20, 20. We're going 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would equal 100%. So ultimately what we're doing is, if we're not careful and focused, we're taking 100% of an effort into something, but only 20% of that is actually getting you 80% of the results, which means we're wasting all this time. So ultimately, this is what we call working smarter if we can change this. Now, before I go into the details, how would we like to work smarter, harder? So instead of getting the 80% return over here, if we doubled up on the actual effort that gets the results and made it 40%, now we're doing times 2. We're going to do 100 and what is that? 160? 160% more in results. That's incredible. So let's talk about this. How can you apply this in your time? Well, here's my phone, and I manage my time tremendously. So much so that every so often I go through my phone and I delete my apps, because a lot of the time that you're spending on your day is time wasted in things that you spend just doing nothing with. So if you go through my phone, you'll see that probably for most people, as quote-unquote busy as I am, I have very few apps. And talk about busy, I think sometimes we're so programmed just to work hard and be busy. Many times we're active, but active accomplishing nothing. We're just being busy. And we know this by the 20-80 or the 80-20 rule. So if we can identify what are some of these areas that we're wasting time in here, here, and here, if only 20% of what we're actually doing is getting 80% of the results. Here's another thing that I do with my phone. I have about 5 or 4 phone numbers attached to this phone. Now, the reason I do that is because I want to manage my time. So if a person is a very, very close friend of mine, right, somebody I speak to every day, that person has a different phone number with a different ringtone. So if that person texts me or calls me, I will know right away from the tone that that is a personal friend of mine, and if a personal friend of mine is a personal friend of mine, I get to them very, very quickly. Then I have another number that's strictly people who are business associates or business related who still may be friends, but not the close everyday how you doing type of friend. That person has a different number with a different tone and a different ring. And when that person calls, I know that tone, and it may or may not be as high as a priority as the person who is my personal friend. So these are things that I do to manage my lifestyle. So that's the area of time. Now let's talk about working out. So I work out right now about 6 days a week. And I see people at the gym and they're working out and they're wasting their time doing the exact same thing, getting a lot less results, or taking twice as long to get the same results. Let me give you a simple example. Say you're taking some weights and you're going to do a curl. And the curl basically is you go down, it's really heavy, and you come right back up. Now you see some people at the gym doing this. All right, let's say it's a heavy weight, or not so heavy, but they're just doing this. That's virtually going to do nothing, unless you're doing it to warm up your muscles. What you need to do is, if you're trying to build bulk as a guy, women will do more reps, but if you're a guy and you want to build more bulk, what you do, you go heavier. You only want to do maybe 5 or 8 reps, but here's the key. 20% of the effort is going to get you 80% of the result. So when I go down slow, hold it, and then try to bring it up really fast. Bring it down slow, hold it, and that holding it and bringing up slow like this, or hard or fast if I can, that is where you get the muscle build. And then when you go down, you don't drop it down, you go slow, hold it, and then try to bring it up quicker. Just something simple like that, I apply the 80-20 rule, and I can build muscle faster than a person twice as fast because they may not be doing it correctly. So many different ways. I wrote down a couple categories. Relationships, oh my gosh, that's a huge one. So stop and think about the relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship. And of that time that you spend in the relationship, maybe in an entire day you spend an equivalent, if you were to put it all together in little different pieces, let's say you spend an hour with a person, whether it be talking, texting, calling, kissing, hugging, whatever. So 20% of that time is going to get you 80% of the results of that person feeling loved. Well, if you knew what that 20% was, then why would we not keep doing it and forget the other 80% that means nothing to the other person? So basically, it would be important to know what that person's love language is. So you're giving that 80%, you're giving that 20% in their love language. And the other part you don't want to do anymore, so you give more of that 20%, making 40%, 80%, and so forth. So basically, you're over-delivering in your expression of love or in your relationship. There are so many ways to do this. In business, this will totally transform any kind of business. What business owners do, people in sales and what have you, if they would identify the 20% of what they're doing that gets them 80% of the return, then what you will do is you will shave off all the other. I see too many people in business that are incredibly distracted with the other 80% that's non-essential. So if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, what I recommend that you do is you figure out the amount of time that you're putting into your company. Of that time, what's the 20% that's bringing you 80% of the return financially? And then, are you willing to be hyper-focused so you can get rid of all the other nonsense that doesn't make sense, that's not getting a return, that's making us psychologically feel that we're doing good because we're working hard being busy? We're programmed, I think in most cultures, you got to work hard, you got to work hard. You got to have those ethics and have hard work ethics. And it's important to work hard, but if I'm going to work hard, I want to work hard in my 20%, not all this. So I'm basically working smarter, harder, especially if I want to take this to 20%, 40%, 60%. So imagine that you're 20%, you know what it is, you're honing in on it. So now you're doing 20%, you're getting 80% results. look how much extra time you have to either dramatically increase your 20%, make it 40, 60, 80, 100 if you want. And by the way, if you made that 100, you would multiply that times 4, or sorry, by 5, you're now going to get a 400% return. A 400% return on your time. If you're a company owner with employees, they're doing the same thing. Of all the time they're putting in, 20% of it is bringing 80% of the outcome or the result. What we want to do is figure out what that 20% is, hone in on that, and shave off this other stuff, or delegate some of this other stuff to somebody else and make it their 20%. Let me see what other areas that we can talk about in doing this. Stress management. Oh my gosh, I do this in stress management. Think about all the stress that you go through. How much of that stress is really good stress? Some of it's good, some of it's bad. And you may have seen some of my videos before where I talk about stress, is that there's predictable stress and unpredictable stress. Predictable stress is stress that you know that you can predict. For example, if I don't pay my car payment, they're going to take my car. If I don't buy my groceries, my kids are going to starve. That's going to be predictable stress. So if you know how to predict your stress, then you can leave your mental real estate by managing the predictable stress so you can have it effectively ready for unpredictable stress, to run your company, to do things that happen that you can't predict. There's so many areas that you can use the 80-20 rule. I want you now, when we finish watching this video, see if you can identify what are some of the things that you're doing that you can make some changes to get more results with less time. So I'd like you to write down a couple of categories. If you're able to write down while we're watching this together or sharing some time together, write down a few categories. So here's a couple of categories. You could put down, if you exercise, you could use your workout. And I see people, I had somebody that I worked out with, and they wanted to get more fit. All they did was like jumping jacks and sit-ups, which are fine, but what they weren't doing was resistance training. So if they put more resistance, and this was a woman, so if she put more resistance into her training, she would get greater results in a lot less time. Time management, everybody has time, right? Maybe a little time, a lot of time, but we're all eating up time. You can't get that back. How can you use the 80-20 for your time? I use this even in my household. There's so many different ways that you can do this. Here's a simple example. Let's say a couple or a man has kids, woman, and they drive their kids to school every day. Let's just say the drive is 30 minutes. Now, we all know, if we've ever taken an Uber before, how many of you taken an Uber? Say, I've taken an Uber. Type it in the comments. Everybody's taken an Uber. Would you be willing to admit that when you're in the back seat of an Uber, there's a lot less stress because you are not thinking about driving, even though driving doesn't take a lot of thinking or intelligence, if you will. But wouldn't you also agree that you can concentrate more and focus more in the back seat not driving than doing the exact same thing that you would do if you were driving? And if you were having conversations with people, there's still some distraction. You ever been in the backseat of an Uber with a friend? And now you can just focus on everything. Or on a phone call, you can focus on everything. Here's my point. We know the importance of spending time with our children. Try this. Take the 20%. Sometimes it's going to cost you, by the way. Always remember, sometimes it will cost you to focus on the 20%, which means you may have to hire somebody. You might have to hire somebody to delegate something to delegate these other things to, so you can maintain and focus on the 20%. And with regards to the Uber, you would pay an Uber, hire an Uber to drive you and your kids to school, and I will assure you, you will spend a lot more time focusing on them, as long as you're not on the phone, focusing on them, and you've just put more effort into your 20% with your kids. There's so many different ways to think about this. What's so cool about this, you are limited to your imagination, and the more you focus on this, the more results that you'll get, and I will assure you, you will end up, no matter who you are, how many kids you have, and it's still a lot, okay? I'm not, minimizing if you had a lot of responsibility, but you will learn. You will definitely learn how to manage things where you have more quality time getting more quality results financially, emotionally, mentally, with your relationships. The list goes on and on. I would love for you to write down some of the areas that you think, in your comments, some of the areas that you think that you can manage more and get that 20% tightened up. And when you do that, it will change your life. If you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, it will definitely change your business, where you can either work less, make a lot more money, or if you want to, go ahead, you still don't even have to work more. You could double this, still have 60% of your time left over, and double your sales or productivity. All right, that's it. Love to see your comments below. And again, if you haven't subscribed to this, I'd certainly appreciate you do. We're out of here. Between now and the next time we get to chat tequila, say goodbye. We'll see you. And I look forward to sharing you the next video. Talk soon. Bye-bye.